Welcome to the On the Whistle podcast. My name is Alasdair Howorth. This month is the 2022 Women's Africa Cup of Nations taking place in Morocco, and On the Whistle will be at the tournament, bringing you the latest news, analysis, and interviews as the competition progresses. To keep up with everything, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at OTW_podcast, as well as on YouTube and Facebook under the name On the Whistle Podcast. First up, we did a very special interview with Tottenham Hotspur and Morocco star Rosella Ayane. I want to hear a bit about your story. You obviously you grew up in England, but you kind of qualified to play through Morocco through your father, right? Growing up, was there any kind of Moroccan flavor in the household? Kind of like, what was it like growing up?
Of course. I mean, my dad is born and bred Moroccan. He was born in Casablanca. I still have family out in Casablanca now. Morocco has a very special place in my heart. Obviously, I'm still in and around. I go to Casablanca as much as I can to see my family. And, I grew up playing for England youth, but it gets to a certain point in your career where you need to make a decision, and it's not an easy decision of, do you want to push on and play senior football on the international stage? And that's one that I definitely wanted to do. Obviously, growing up with England youth, it taught me a lot. But I think when I spoke with where Morocco is going as a nation and what they're wanting to achieve, and obviously with it being such a special place in my heart, it was just a no-brainer to just go on and do it. And if I'm honest, I think it's probably one of the best decisions I've made in my football career so far. It's up there with one of the other ones, but I have nothing bad to say about it. I've enjoyed every camp. The girls are great, the manager's great, and the federation seem to be backing us positively. So, good decision, I think, 9 months ago, 10 months ago, whenever it was.
Mm-hmm. Oh, amazing. That's great to hear. I mean, what was that process like? Did they approach you, or how did that actually happen?
If I'm honest, it was 3 or 4 years ago, my family and I were speaking, and, playing for Morocco was obviously an option because of my dad, and my mum's Scottish, so Scotland was also an option. And I'm in and around the England youth teams, and it was one that I considered 3 or 4 years ago, but obviously I was a lot younger, just weighing up my options. And then I think one of the Moroccan scouts reached out to my agent and just said that they'd love to invite me down for a trip. And I think at this point it would have been a trip where, if I decided that it didn't work, I wouldn't have been necessarily not capped, but when you can't go back from a different nation, I don't think that was going to be an issue. So I had nothing to really lose going down and seeing how the country is, how the team is, etc. And I'm really thankful that they reached out, because as I said, it's been great.
Yeah, and I mean, you've had a pretty stellar start to your Moroccan career. Was it five goals, 6 goals in 7 games or something like that? Seriously impressive numbers.
My stats are okay right now from Morocco. Yeah.
Was it a goal in the first minute of your debut?
Yeah,
something like that?
It's still wild for me to talk about, really, because obviously as a footballer on your debut, as a striker anyway, you always want to make an impact in your first game, whether that be a goal or an assist. And it's what dreams are made of, right? Scoring a goal on your debut. But for it to be in the first minute was pretty crazy, and the feelings were rather overwhelming, actually, when I look back at it. But yes, my stats and everything is going pretty smoothly so far, so I can't complain.
Mm-hmm. And how have you found, in terms of playing, kind of what's the difference between playing kind of on a European level to now playing some African? You played Mali and Gambia, some smaller teams, but you also played against Ghana and scored a brace, right? And Ghana are probably the biggest shock of a team not being at the AFCON. It's such a strong team, and it's kind of a shame that they had to come up against Nigeria in qualifiers. What has kind of been the big differences in terms of the way the football is played, or the process?
Yeah, I think African football especially is very, very physical. They're very strong, they're very fast, and you can sense that in the first 5 minutes of a game. And you don't necessarily have that intense physicality in Europe. Of course, people are strong and people are fast, but there's just an extra edge to it in Africa. And, you know, I realized that in my first 5 minutes of my debut, but they're very good at what they do in Africa. And, you know, when we played Ghana, they were a great side. And as you said, it is a shame that they're not at the tournament this summer, because, you know, they just show what African football for women especially is about. But yeah, it's a great tournament, and one that I'm looking forward to this summer. Hopefully that we can do well in.
And kind of the process of you joining the team, how has that been in terms of integrating into the squad? You know, has there been, you know, how is your Dirigen French? You know, has the integration been all right in terms of, you know, joining the squad, or how's that been? What's that been like?
You know, I can't fault the girls or the management or any of the staff at all, because they've all been absolutely brilliant with me. It hurts to say, and I'm embarrassed to say this, but I can't speak a word of French and I can't speak a word of Arabic, and that's on me. You know, I'm going to a nation where it's an Arabic and French nation, and everyone on the team speaks one of those languages. And it's been tough for me because I want to be involved and I want to show my personality off the pitch. And, you know, I'm trying to pick up on French where I can and Arabic where I can. When I see my family, they try to teach me things, and I'm trying to pick up on French when I'm not there. So it has been tough, but from the staff and the players' perspective, they've been fantastic. They've made me feel involved. They've tried to speak to me and translate things where they can. And, you know, the main integration language situation is from me, because I need to learn those languages, and it's one that I'm trying to do. But they've been absolutely fantastic, making me feel welcome.
And you know, obviously that's always a really tough thing, going into a new environment where linguistically you're, you know, can't quite keep up with everyone else. How do you, once you get onto the pitch though, is there that same barrier, or is it kind of you're playing football and it doesn't matter what language you speak?
This is what I always say, and that's why football's great. Football is the same language. As soon as we get on the pitch, there's no real translation issues. There's no real language barrier, because everyone's on the same page with the message that the coach is trying to give out, and everyone's on the same page with, you know, how we're going to play the game and how we work hard for each other. And, you know, it's mainly the language barrier mainly comes off the pitch. So as soon as we step over that white line, you can't even tell that I can't speak the same language as them, and it's great.
That's brilliant to hear. But I mean, obviously you've joined the Moroccan team kind of mid-COVID and things like that. Have you been able to kind of interact with Morocco as a wider country, as part of the team, or is kind of your experience of playing for Morocco been really isolated because of COVID, and you haven't really been able to experience much outside of that?
Yeah, no. Obviously, I joined bang in the middle of the pandemic, and no fans, no spectators, no media. So that sense of it felt a bit strange, but I was used to that, because obviously playing with Tottenham, we had the same situation for 9 months. So I was used to it in a sense, but that's why I'm also really looking forward to this summer. I'm hoping that the Moroccans come out in force and we fill the stadiums, and, you know, we feel the backing from everyone in Morocco. And, you know, it'd be nice, especially after COVID, for everyone to come out and support us and see us in real life, because we have had a lot of support on social media, and obviously when it's televised, we get a lot of support online, but it would be really nice to see that in person this summer and really feel it, because in tournament football, you really do need that 12th man. And with it being in Morocco, that's a perfect time for us to show them and have their support.
Absolutely. I want to pick up on that kind of online support. You know, you oftentimes hear stories of people who kind of, when they get their first national cap, where they change allegiance, suddenly they have, you know, 20,000 new followers on various social media, and they suddenly get, you know, loads and loads of people supporting. What has that been like for you in terms of online?
It's been crazy, to be honest. The support has been incredible for myself, and it was a bit overwhelming at first. As you said, as soon as I played in my first camp and scored my first goal, the support just came flooding through. My Instagram actually shut down for like 20 minutes just because it couldn't take, I never usually have that, so it just couldn't take the overload of it. But yeah, they've been great. They've been supportive, and, you know, I'm just hoping that support comes to the stadiums in the summer.
That's amazing. I love that. I mean, and in terms of joining the side, what has been your impression of the Moroccan setup in terms of, there's the professionalism, this training facilities? How has that all been when you've linked up with the team?
I think the professionalism and the structure of how we run at Morocco is obviously going to be good, because our manager has won with Champions League. He's won Best Coach of the Year. So of course, when you're under a manager like that with that sort of experience, and he's played himself, so you're going to get that professionalism. But with regards to the federation, I think the setup that we have out in Morocco is great. It's sort of like I always describe it as a St. George's Park with palm trees. So
very good description.
The setup there is great. Of course, I think there's always things that can improve. But I think, when we actually sit down and look at it, where we're at the moment is great. With the tournament this summer being in our nation, I just think that will bring a lot of eyes to Morocco, to our team. And I'm just hoping from there we can push on. And when you're successful in football, then that leads to more and more things changing and improving. So just hoping that will be the case. But, for where we're at the moment, and where you look at other nations in Africa, where they're at, I think we're in a really good place.
Yeah, I think Morocco's invested so much over the last couple of years to really kind of improve massively the women's game. But I suppose we'll see if the fruits of it kind of come to the fore this summer, because I think it's going to be a brilliant tournament. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this, but in terms of obviously the big ruling last week with the US team getting equal pay to the men's team, there's been a lot of chat around that in terms of how that impacts other countries and how that impacts the US in regards to that. How do you feel about that, and how do you feel like that might impact, say, football in the UK, but also in Morocco and in Africa?
I think first of all, it's great that they finally got that confirmed, because when you look at how successful the American women's national team has been, I think they deserve everything that they're asking for, because they've won major tournaments back to back. They've won so many things. All their players are so successful. So I think what they're fighting for is completely fair. And I think when other nations see that, I always say that, first of all, we need the same treatment in the sense of facilities, same backing with medical care, same backing with traveling, same backing with pitch quality. And, I think when you see teams pushing for equal pay, it then shows that you can push for, whether it be equal pay or equal rights or equal opportunities. I think they're all things that will drive other countries and other nations to really push for what they deserve. But with regards to the equal pay, I think America, they deserve that. They've probably brought in so much income for the American Federation, and where they've won so many things, I think it's great to see. And I'm just hoping that will drive other countries and other nations to really push for what they believe that they need.
Yeah, absolutely. Because obviously in Africa, we have our own equivalent of the US in terms of the Nigeria Super Falcons, who've cleaned up almost every single AFCON that's kind of happened, with the exception of, I think, 2, which is, seriously impressive. But I mean, speaking of them going into this tournament, how are you feeling? Morocco, obviously, there's been a lot of improvements over the last couple of years. You saw the local game improving and professionalizing a lot. But Morocco still, they've never made it out of the group stage at an AFCON. How are you feeling going into it?
I'm excited. I think obviously we all know that Nigeria are a force in Africa. I think they're well respected around the world as well. So, it will be tough, but I think we're in a really positive place, myself especially. And, the last camp was all high spirits. We obviously beat Ghana, who are another powerhouse in Africa. And, it's going to be an exciting tournament for sure. And I'm just hoping that we can get the job done, because there's also a lot up for grabs with the World Cup qualification. So there's a lot on the line, and when I look at it, we're in a great place and we'll be ready for whatever comes. So I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm. And off the pitch, this is going to be your first major tournament. How are you feeling about that? Kind of going into a big environment, big camp, and all of that.
Yeah, it's exciting, and I've never actually sat back and looked at that in the sense of it's my first major tournament on the senior international stage. So I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself. It's a team sport. We're all behind each other, and there'll be players in that squad that will be able to help me because I'm sure they've experienced other things before, and I can bring my experience from Tottenham and playing in England youth tournaments, etc., etc. So I'm not going to think about that too much. I'm just going to think about it game by game, and then we'll go from there.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of kind of going into it, you're in a group with Senegal, Burkina Faso, and Uganda. Particularly Uganda and Burkina Faso, kind of slightly unknown quantities in many ways. One of the things I really enjoyed about covering the CAF Women's Champions League was you had teams from all over the continent, but because teams didn't really know each other, there wasn't as much footage to prepare. You actually found that even though there was some of the really big teams like Sundowns and Rabat and these teams, they struggled against some of the smaller teams because they just didn't know how to prepare to against them. Is there a sense of that? Have you been able to prepare much again for these teams, and kind of do you know what to expect?
As soon as we get into camp, obviously we'll start preparing for these games. But as you said, when you come across smaller nations or smaller teams, they're always hard to beat. And I know that because when we play in cups where we play teams from lower divisions, they're always hard to beat. Mm-hmm. They always have fight. They always have desire. They always work hard for each other. They're hard to break down. So I know myself, I will not be underestimating anyone in that tournament, whether they're seen as the best team in Africa, or whether they're new to the tournament and no one knows what to expect. And I'm pretty sure that everyone in the camp will take that message the same. And, when we have played nations with Morocco that are seen as smaller nations or maybe not as developed, or however people want to put it, they've always put up a fight and they've always been hard to beat. So I think we'll be going into every game like it's lose or die, really. So win or die, sorry. So it's just one that we won't be underestimating anyone. Lose or die. Definitely not.
Hopefully not.
Win or die. No, win or die.
And kind of on the flip side of that, are there any teams / players that you really are looking forward to playing, or you really don't want to play because you want to avoid them?
I think, of course, it's exciting to want to play against Nigeria, and I don't want to say that I want to avoid anyone, because I feel like we're in such a good place and we've got such a good team and where we're at the moment, that I don't want to say that we want to avoid anyone, because I believe in us. It will be exciting to play Nigeria. They're obviously a powerhouse. South Africa, the same. They're obviously a great nation. Cameroon, they come up, like they've been at World Cups, they've been at places, so they'll all be exciting teams to face. But I think I'm really excited for the tournament because, as you said, there's teams that I won't know what to expect from them, and that makes an exciting match, So I'm just looking forward to the tournament in Hull, and I'm just hoping we get to the final and lift that cup in front of a packed stadium. That would be what dreams are made of.
And you alluded to it earlier, the kind of World Cup qualification. Obviously the final four qualify automatically, and kind of the losing quarterfinalists can also qualify through the kind of playoff stage later. In your opinion, how does that change the way you approach it, and do you like that, or do you not? Would you prefer kind of in other regions where you just have flat qualifiers, or how do you feel approaching that?
Well, from my perspective, it's just another driving force to reach the final. I always say, I've been saying, as soon as I knew that it would be the top four that automatically qualify, that's a minimum. I'm going into this tournament and that's an absolute minimum. I remember saying it to my roommate every morning when we woke up, top four minimum. I of course, I'm competitive. I want to win the whole thing. And I'm sure everyone in my team does, but it's another driving force to be at your best in every game, because who doesn't want to play at a World Cup? It'll be the first time that Morocco have ever been to a World Cup, I think. So it's a real motivator for everyone, and I don't see it as a bad thing. I'm really taking it as another driving force to motivate me.
Mm-hmm. No, that's exciting. I mean, obviously, it just adds so much pressure, in addition to what you're already having to play through. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to finally get your thoughts, just kind of in a broader strokes. Obviously, the WSL and football in England has come a very long way in the last, well, even just year. You know, but obviously there's still things that massively need to improve. And you know, like you said, in Europe and Africa and everywhere, there's big improvements need to have. You know, from the small kind of experience you've had with Morocco and coming to play on the continent, you know, how do you think it's going to be moving forward? Are you quite hopeful in that things actually across the continent and African women's football is really going to be improving, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, of course, I'm hopeful that it does improve, and you know, I'm really hoping that, you know, I can't comment too much on other nations because I'm not, you know, I don't know where they've been or where they're at the moment. But I think Morocco, as you said, it has improved so much in the past couple of years. And, you know, it's taken the WSL a while to get to where the WSL is at. You know, I remember starting at Chelsea when I was 17. I'm now 26, and it's in a completely different space. Mm-hmm. And for something to take, you know, 9 years to change, maybe a long time. For me, that's a long time to see something change. So, you know, I'm hoping that we do see change. And of course, there's a lot that can improve, but I don't want to be too negative about that because the change has been positive, especially in Morocco. I'm just hoping that this tournament will kick off change for other nations as well as Morocco. Mm-hmm. I hope to see, you know, facilities equivalent to what the men get, travel plans equivalent to what the men get, you know, just the same support. Because I always say, how is women's football expected to improve when you're not getting the level of support that, you know, necessarily your counterparts get in the men team? And I just think equal pay is great, but first we need to start by giving us equal opportunities, equal support. These things will all contribute towards players becoming the best version of themselves. And, you know, as I said, I'm just hoping that the quality of this tournament this summer, which I know is going to be high quality, will just show the African people all around the continent, the federations, the fans, that we deserve what we're asking for.